A big applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Naren Shaam.
Thank you. Yeah, I wish it was that easy. Can you guys hear me?
Yes. All good. Yeah.
I assume you guys can hear me?
Yes, we do. We do. We hear you.
Okay.
We see you. We don't see any slides on, but just start talking. Will be interesting.
Okay, perfect. Well, thanks for having me again. Apologies I couldn't make it in person. I was really hoping to be there today, but hopefully just a small piece of my story that I want to share, and hopefully that can resonate with some of you, and if so, do let me know how I can help, etc. And happy to hang around afterwards if you want to do a short Q&A or ask a few questions depending on what comes up. So maybe 2 minutes about OMIO, the company that you just heard about. I started with my story around traveling Europe, and what I realized was it's actually very hard to book any transport outside of flights in any website in the world. So the vision evolved from something very simple as I want to buy my train tickets to something a little broader, which is I want to connect all transport globally in a single distribution system. So I want to be able to go to Thailand, buy trains, buses in Brazil, trains in Japan, or of course, anywhere across Europe. And the second piece of the vision is, can we build a product that is so simple and convenient, almost like, ordering something on Amazon where you 2 clicks to buy everything on your phone? And can we build a product that is so simple where consumers' perception of travel is more positive than, it's hard, it's hassle, a lot of difficulties, etc. So that's really the vision. Started in Europe, moved to Berlin in 7 years ago today. Didn't speak a word of German, didn't know a single human being, and yeah, it was a crazy move. Everyone said it was crazy. Very, very good confirmation. If people tell you that you're on to something nice, at least fun. Started chasing the big rail companies to get access to data. Historically, they'd never given their data to third parties before. Many of them, many times it was the first conversation. Sometimes it was 1 or 2 local players only. So start collecting that data, start building inventory, and 7 years forward, we're today one of the largest sources of data across Europe. We operate in 36 countries. We have 7 offices around the world. We run 2 brands. One is called OMIO, which we built organically, and another one called Rome Trio, which we acquired. And we basically have about 500 people across these 7 offices. And roughly we've raised about 400 million capital from Silver Lake, Goldman Sachs, Kleiner Perkins, Temasek, Shinivek, and a few others as well. So that's very briefly about us and OMIO, and I'm really hoping to solve the problem of transport, which is bringing simple end-to-end transport in a click of a button. That's really the vision. But today's talk is more about entrepreneurship, so let me jump directly to that in terms of my lessons learned. And I really have only three things to share around entrepreneurship. One is, and there's 3 aspects to it that I generally talk to other founders that I grab coffee with, and I learn a lot from everyone I speak to. And the 3 things that surfaces constantly is, one is a vision. So if you want to start a company, you should have a vision that is so strong in terms of how much you like the vision. And it can be any problem. If you want to, get video conferencing online to fight Zoom or anything at all, your affinity to that vision has to be so strong that you're willing to really give it your everything and fight for it. You wake up every day, you think about the problem in your shower, in your lunch, everything. You really think through how to solve that. Either it's a consumer problem or whatever solution you're trying to bring to the market. So that's number one, in terms of you really need to feel so strongly towards that. And for me, it was solving this consumer problem of bringing transport in a click of a couple of buttons. And the vision has to be so strong enough that you can overcome all the basic hurdles, like moving to another country where you don't speak the language, setting up an entity. All of these are basically speed bumps along the way, hopefully to something much bigger. So you need that drive, and the drive has to be very strong. And you know, not everybody has that. Sometimes a lot of people work with other founders. You know, you can still build very big businesses as part of management team, etc. But you need to have that inherent drive, and that's really, really important, where you feel passionate about that that vision. The second thing that I've learned over time is persistence. And over time, you know, all startups go through ups and downs as readers of the news, etc. We're always reading the nice kind of founder who raises 100 million, and a founder who takes a company public that, you know, pops 100% or whatever it is. But really behind all of this is a lot of hard work and a lot of sleepless nights and a lot of persistence, and it's never easy. And after founding Omio is when I got a true appreciation to literally every single founder out there, whether they run a 2 people, 3 people company or a 10,000 people company. It's just so hard. And this persistence is really, really necessary, especially for the first thing I mentioned, which is around your vision, because it takes really everything out of your life. And, you know, there's founders that want to build startup because they want to call themselves founders. And there's, and I can tell you for a fact that, you know, there's absolutely no glory in being a founder. There's, you know, it's just mostly sleepless nights, hard work. And the persistence is really, really necessary for you to get through the ups and downs. And then the third lesson I want to just share with you is around humility. So as you grow your business, as you grow the company, as you start getting into new networks, new learnings, new customer segments, new investors, whatever it is, don't forget where you started from. Humility is really, really important. It keeps you grounded in terms of the learnings, because every stage of a company is something completely new. I've never done that before. I've never operated in 35 markets or you know, hundreds of millions of users. I don't really have the right solutions. But it's really important to stay humble, because then you're constantly listening to, you know, all the people that actually know better than you, and you can learn from them. And this learning is what makes you scale as a founder to a CEO, and a CEO to making a well-run business. So that's the 3 brief things I wanted to share with all of you. I know you've got a fantastic 2 days packed on this summit. I'm happy to share more insights on you know, setting up an entity, how to build a strong team at the onset, which matters a lot when you build a business. Whether it's, you know, how to set up the right equity structure if you're 2 co-founders, how to raise your first seed round. Happy to answer any of those questions if it is Q&A. But really 3 key messages I wanted to land today with all of you. I wish you my very best in terms of starting companies. Though the journey is very hard and incredibly hard, it is one of the most satisfying things if you decide to walk down this path anyone can ever do. The satisfaction along the journey in terms of, you know, when your team launches a product that even blows your mind, when a customer writes you an email saying, this is one of the best experiences I've ever had, or when you literally, for me, you know, when I get off a flight in, say, Rome or something, and the person in front of you opens the OMIO app and you just see that come through, it's just one of the most satisfying experiences. So with that, I'll stop now. Thank you very much for having me at this panel, and wish you my very best on whatever endeavors you pursue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Mr. Rainer Seider of the organizing committee would like to speak to you shortly, Naren.
So that's the camera probably. Can you see me?
Yeah, I can see you.
Perfect. Naren, thank you very much for coming for today's conference. I have a question. So is it very difficult for Indian origin startup to do your business in Berlin? Is it difficult with the language, bureaucracy, with the ecosystem, or do you think that's one of the minor problems you had to face in your career as a startup?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. When I moved to Berlin, there weren't that many companies at scale. Today we have a lot of companies. There weren't that many foreigners who were founders, so it was slightly harder, I would say. But in the end, like, remember, if you're building a business, getting used to a new ecosystem, getting used to the language, overcoming the hurdles of hiring your first talent. I was back then, 2013, I was a crazy guy who moved from New York, trying to convince people that German Rail will give us data and we'll sell their tickets and we'll raise capital and build a business. Everyone thought you're just crazy. Why would I work with you? So it is always going to be harder. But remember that building a company and building a business is so much harder than, I call it speed bumps of, coming to Berlin, setting up an entity or speaking the language, etc. So I think if you have the drive and the persistence to build a business, it's going to be a very small speed bump. But I will say, though, that over the last 7 years, the ecosystem is so diverse. Like at OMIO, we have people from 52 nationalities and 40% women in the company. So it is really so diverse that I don't think the challenges that were there 7 years ago exist anymore. And so I would, if you're thinking of moving to Berlin and build a business, I would be very strongly supportive of. It's a fantastic ecosystem. You stand on the backbone of German infrastructure, which is very, very strong, stable government, rule of law, good healthcare systems for families, just a fantastic place. I would very much encourage anyone thinking of Berlin as a startup ecosystem.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Actually, we have not really prepared for Q&A, but are there more people who want to ask a question? Yeah? Yeah, maybe also say, he can also see you.
Okay, how do I do this? Go to the camera. Okay, maybe a bit more in the center.
Okay, I'm a startup founder as well. How do you keep going? Where do you find the energy? Because sometimes you mention these speed bumps and sometimes they feel like brick walls. So what advice do you have for other founders to get through these very tough times?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Also remember that on top of that, you've got to carry the weight and the energy for everybody around you, because people, employees, management teams, they can always leave. They have a choice to go do something else. You don't as a founder. So you carry that extra burden of, you have to be the positive voice, no matter how dark it gets, to drive towards the right thing. So you carry that extra weight. Don't forget that. I think what I found useful is generally you surround yourself with a few other founders, especially founders, because they all feel the same loneliness. And generally my advice is somebody that's about 10x bigger than the size of your company, because then for them, it's not something, it doesn't take a lot when you express your problems. If somebody is 10x bigger in terms of scale of business, to digest some of your problems and not necessarily, they don't need to internalize it. They can give you very simple advice because they've been there, done that, and they don't have to think very hard. So they can be your sparring partner. And as you grow through the business, always scale that founder circle to the next person who's 10x, etc. So that kind of, and you look up to them, you respect them, and they give you the strength in terms of, okay, if they can get there, you can as well. But yeah, it's hard. Like it's 50% you, 50% all the help you can get from others that will be willing to give the time to support you. The only thing I will connect back to the three things I said is humility. Because another founder gives you the time, don't ever take their even a minute of their time for granted. If they can only speak at 5:30 because that's when they wake up, and before the kids wake up at 5:30. That's you want them more than they can do it, and they do it as a favor for other founders. So, and I've been very lucky in this, but make sure that you are 100% respectful of their time, and when you do that, you will realize that a lot of founders are willing to give a lot to support the ecosystem, because all of us want a strong ecosystem here.
I see a couple of other questions, so I would kindly ask you to come forward and so that Naren can also see you. The camera's over there. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, Naren. I'm Tarun. Also a travel technology founder. Unlike
Hey,
you.
Tarun.
Hi.
Terrible industry to be in as part of Corona.
So you know where my question's going, and then so that's the direction. Our user base went down, and you being at the helm of the pulse of the travelers in Europe and other countries, how do you see, let's say, the next 2 years? I know you raised capital. I was following the news. How do you see the next 2 years for OMIO, but also for the the travel industry in general? And what would be your advice to people who have been there, who are in maybe the local search technology, not in the booking technology?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, by the way, on the camera, can you guys keep it on the screen so I can see people, because I see myself in. Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. That's a really good question, Tarun. So we are back up to 50-60% of pre-COVID levels already. So since we do trains and buses, we have benefited from the fact that people take more ground transport. There's shift from air to ground, so we've benefited from that. But in general, travel is hurt the hardest. But what we see is basically travel is, and what we believe very strongly is, travel is inherently one of the most inspirational things most people do. So consumers are not going to start traveling. It's just bottled up demand with a tight lid, and it's going to overflow. So it's going to come back stronger. And there are other industries that are benefiting from it now, but there's only so many hours of Zoom calls people can do. They're going to want to get out, and they're going to want to explore again, inherently. So the only couple of pieces of things, and I don't know exactly what you do, but make sure your balance sheet is strong. If you need to restructure the company, etc., do it now when you're in the middle of the storm, because it's just those tough decisions people need to take. Number one, keep a strong balance sheet and runway, because it will come back, but it's going to take time. And the second thing is, see if you can invest in infrastructure that drives the future rather than ride the wave to be part of the future. So always imagine what your industry is going to look like. You're going to have to make some bets. And then drive towards that. So you push towards what you want the future to be, rather than being a one player and allowing others to drive that. So if you're able to do that, definitely do that. And keep your strength through this. It's going to come back. So 100%. So I'm not even worried about that.
Okay, yeah, the organization came up to me and they said, we're going to throw you out because it's too late already. So we've passed our time that we are allowed to be in this building, actually. So they're already stretching it, Naren. So this was super inspiring to end the first day with. Tomorrow there's a second day of this AsiaBerlin conference. We all see you at Spielfeld. This is where we will be. But one final round of a huge applause, also, of course, for Diksha leading the panels here today in this room where we're at, but especially for Naren giving us such an inspiring end of the first day of the AsiaBerlin Summit. Thank you so much, Naren.
Thank you for having me.